Welcome back, game design students, to part 2 of the first-person shooter prototype tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to go a bit more into the details of how each of these different features works so that you can implement them, adapt them, and kind of layer them into your own custom content. So let's take a peek at some of our different features. I've headed into level 2, where we have very little to show for here. I've added a wall just to kind of, maybe I'll center it a little bit better here, just to showcase maybe some of our targetable stuff. Don't even need it, just thought I'd throw it in there. But everything else is gone. All I have in here is this wall. Maybe I'll rename this wall. Oh. And I have the floor. I have just the light, the sun, a main camera, and the player. Now, something that I want to be mindful of when I make a new level is that my player already comes with a camera. So I can actually delete the camera that came with the level and nothing bad's going to happen. If you don't, there's a chance that Unity will pull the wrong camera in to show your perspective. So just something to make note of here. But I want to kind of show you what it might be like to develop some content completely from scratch. So why don't we start in our prefabs folder with this enemy. To add an enemy into our level, I've made this as easy as I can, where you simply drag it in and drop it, and then move the enemy around into position. I'm trying with my gizmos just so we can see things more clearly. Maybe rotate this enemy around, lift them up a little bit, and now I can just press run. And this enemy should, when I get close enough, not target me. So it's not a perfectly implemented system just yet. Did Mr. Owl make a mistake? No, actually, there's times where I've built all the features for you that'll work right out of the box, excuse me, and other times where you have to do a little bit of connecting the dots to make things work. So to be able to solve a problem like this, we need to learn how to read a tiny bit about error messages. At the bottom of the screen, when a feature doesn't work, it'll often say a red error. If I click on it, it'll give me some more information. And notice that when I click on this, it highlights something in my game. This says unassigned reference exception. Unassigned reference means that there's something the enemy is looking for that it doesn't know how to find. And then it tells me the variable player of hunt player has not been assigned. What does this mean? Well, let's click on enemy and see if we can find any of this information. Hunt player is actually a script. The variable player is a slot in it that's expecting some information, and I don't have any yet. So what is it? Well, the player is the player from my game. I need to attach it to the enemy so the enemy knows what to follow. There's two ways I can do this. The first way is by clicking on this dot beside it. It's going to show me all of the objects in this game I have to choose from. And I could just choose the player from this list right here. Or I could go and just click and drag the player into this slot. Both ways will work just fine. Now when I run the game, the enemy has a target in mind that if I get close enough, it'll latch onto me and hunt me down. Cool. I also want to show you one more thing while we're playing. Notice my health is now set to 2. And with my health set to 2, that means that if the enemy touches me, touch me again, I restart the level. So I have a feature that I forgot to mention in the past video where we actually have a level restart if we run out of health with our enemies kind of coming up and hitting us too many times, contacting us. Okay, so let's head back into our enemy and see if there's other things we can customize about this thing to make it a bit more interesting. If I open up the enemy, I have a few components inside. The left and the right eyes are just visual things attached to the enemy so that it looks like that. The canvas is just to show its HP. It's the floating text above it. But where we have this interesting feature is the detection range. The detection range is a sphere collider. And if I press edit on it, you'll see this collider appear suddenly. This is the range of the enemy's detection, meaning that anything inside of this green orb is where the enemy's eyesight works, kind of. I'm going to make an adjustment to the enemy. Check this out. I'm going to take the back of the sphere and I'm going to shrink it down so that its back, it can't really detect things until it gets really close. And the front, I'm going to pull out. It's kind of hard to see with this white floor. There we go. The white, I'm going to pull out quite far, which means that it's kind of like almost encompassing this whole arena. There's almost nowhere my player can go to escape. And finally, I'm going to take the base enemy and I'm going to rotate it so that it's facing the other way. Now, if I take a look at my collider, notice that now I have to get very close for the enemy to see me. I'll pull this a little bit further back. But now the enemy has like lots of awareness to the side and to the front, but almost no awareness behind it. Check out how this works. Now if I run my game, the enemy doesn't see me until I get very close, and then it suddenly notices me, and now I'm in trouble because its detection range is the same size as this floor. Now it's going to follow me basically forever, and now I have a fight on my hands. So we can actually change that collision box, where's my stop button here, to be very customized and create some interesting, unique kind of, maybe you even want to think about like stealth or sneaky gameplay. Now really we want to make some patrol pathways for enemies for that, but for our current level of learning that's going to be a little bit too much. So for now we're just going to leave it a little bit more like this. So here's how you can kind of work with an enemy, and of course I can add in more enemies if I want to, and maybe just pull them up from being inside the floor. Maybe I'll have this enemy rotate to face, and this enemy I'm going to have its detection range be, I don't know, maybe I'm happy with that rate. Maybe I'll shrink it all down a little bit to make it a little bit less aggressive. You can have as many enemies as you want because these enemies all behave independently. This one is going to start to follow me. Oh, I forgot. I got the same error again because this enemy also needs a quick reference to my player. So let's find it, double click to link it in place. Each enemy I add needs to have that player reference. Now this enemy, they're both following me, and you can see how like there could be many different creatures you could have following the player all at once, including your own custom ones. One last note about enemies, you can actually change their speed and health inside of this set of scripts when you click on them here. This health of 10, what if I made this 2? What if I made the speed 0.4? Let's just see what that feels like for this enemy over here. This one's a little bit weaker, a little bit slower, a little bit easier to kill. Awesome. So we can make some of these kind of enemies work in this manner. And you know what? For this tutorial, why don't we just kind of finish by thinking about custom enemies. So how would I make my own custom enemy follow the player? Well, my main tip for you is this, is that use the prefab enemy as a guide to see what things you need to attach to it to make it work. So this enemy requires a collider, it requires a rigid body, it requires these two scripts, the HP UI script and the Hunt player script, and then underneath it, it has other visual components, but it needs a canvas for HP, and it also needs to have a detection range collider attached to it. So how would we make a custom enemy? Well, what if I make, I don't know, let's make a sphere. Let's make a rolling enemy here really quick, just to kind of see how this might work, and we'll find out if it works in the first place to see how well this stuff I built seems to be functioning. So let's leave it as a white ball here. And so now we see, okay, this enemy, it had a box collider. Well, my sphere is going to have a sphere collider. That's okay. And it's going to need a rigid body. It also needed a couple scripts. It needed the update HP UI and the Hunt player. So under my scripts, I'm going to look for my update HP UI and drag it on. I clicked and dragged it. I'm also going to find my Hunt player script and drag it on here. Now, I have to connect a few more pieces of things here because I've now custom built this. So my HP text is going to be for this actual object needing some HP. So what do I need to do to build this? I need to right click on it. I need to go to user interface and create a piece of text. Follow along with me, pause and go back to this if you need to, because it could be a little bit confusing at the start. But when I create this, I'm going to call this maybe my HP UI. And this thing is now a massive thing that goes over the screen in a weird way. So I have to, if I want it to be over top of this enemy, I need to change a setting in my canvas, which is called world space. Rather than screen space overlay, I'm going to call this one world space. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have to bring its scale down quite a bit. Maybe 0.001 will be a good starting point, and double click on this to kind of see what it looks like. So this thing, this canvas for my sphere is not very happy right now. It's way up in the sky with other things over there. So what do I do to bring this thing down? Over top of my, if I go close to where I want it above my player, if I go game object, align with view, it's going to pull this text right down by the player. Now you'll see the text is kind of a bit of a strange, maybe not quite the right size. What size is my canvas here? Wrong color. So how do I change these things? Well, the actual text object itself, I can change some of the settings. Like I can change the color to black. I could up the font size to make it quite a bit bigger. And this canvas, part of the problem right now is that I turned off my gizmos. So if I turn this back on, I can actually see how big that canvas is. And that seems like a pretty decent size for this canvas. And I kind of want to turn off that T, hovering over things. Where's my T? I thought I just turned it off. It didn't go away. But okay, that's okay. We'll work with this for now. This text object in the middle here is something that I can move around. I can also resize it, just like any other object in Unity, by clicking and dragging it and making it bigger like this. Now with it selected, I can have it auto fit the size of the text so that it kind of centers itself, and I can adjust it accordingly. This is something that if you want to work with, you can do some playing around with it and get a bit of a better sense of how you can position things in the right spot for the text to appear. Maybe I want this to be rotated over this way instead, depending on which direction I think this thing's going to move. I'm going to have to do some testing for this here. But now I have this text above its head. Cool. All right, finally, this enemy has this HP UI that I can click into place so that I can update its health on its own. The shootable object is something that if I look back at my enemy here, what is the shootable object? Well, it's actually another script. I kind of glossed over it when I looked at it here. It's another script that I need inside of this enemy. So I need to actually add a shootable object, which allows my game to process that it's being shot. And now I can attach this into this slot. So you see here that building something custom is quite a bit more work than using my pre-built thing. And this is already with a lot of things set up for you. Lots of layers going on with things. If it's something where you're getting a bit lost in setting up this custom enemy, you just want to use the ones I pre-built for you, feel totally free. But right now, I just want to finish showing you how to make this thing custom and work on its own. So let's just wrap this up here really quick. So in here, I see that now I have, I think, all of the different settings for the things I was looking to add in here. We got our HP, we got our shootable object stuff attached in here. Maybe I want to adjust the health. Maybe I want to adjust some other things, but I'm happy with that right now. The last thing I need inside my sphere is a detection range. And to make this, I'm actually going to right click and I'm going to create an empty object inside of it that I'm going to call detection range. And this object is something I'm going to add my sphere collider to. So add component sphere collider. Now when I press edit on this, this is the thing that when I stretch out will become the detection range for this object. Oops, I clicked off it by accident. Go back to my detection range. Hard to see in the white background, but click and drag this. So technically, this should allow this to track and follow my player. Let's go in here. And this thing needs, one more setting changed here. This detection range needs to be a trigger, not a actual collider, because it's triggering a response. And in here, the last thing that I need to do for my sphere is change the tag. In my scripts, the tags are used to be able to actually change how things interact with one another. And right now, this sphere is technically not being considered shootable. It's being considered, well, unshootable. So I need to actually choose my shootable tag to be able to allow this thing to be shot. Let's take a look here. And now this enemy hits the ground, and the variable of player has not been assigned. Did I really do that again? I did. I forgot to connect my player to this. We've learned about this, so I'm going to attach my player and put this on, and hopefully the journey of making this is complete. You see the health is kind of off to the side there, and this thing is way too fast for what it's supposed to do, but you can see that it's doing its job of chasing me down and doing lots of damage. So maybe I want to crank the sphere's move speed down quite a bit. Let's make it 1. And something about this sphere that's kind of interesting is it rolls, meaning that its detection range is actually going to be adjusting as it rolls, which means I might actually want it to have a perfectly round detection range rather than one that's kind of leaning more forward than back. So this should just be kind of like a, I don't know, maybe more of a sentry item. And the text, the health text is going to do a weird thing too, but avoiding that is a little bit beyond what we need to worry about right now. So let's just have some fun building a clunky, wacko, but functional enemy that now actually rolls and follows me around as another enemy in this game. And, oh, my mouse got off the screen here. And you can see I can shoot this thing. It got some momentum and rolled off the screen, but pretty cool. I've made kind of a bit of my own custom enemy idea. There's many things that you could kind of attach and build yourself to get this up and running. And I'll let you explore and experiment with this. But of course, if you just want to use your own enemy, you're welcome to. In the next video, I'll show you a couple of the other systems in the game so that we don't get too long in any one video.